I still remember the exact moment when everything changed. We were standing on the edge of the cliff, the sun setting behind us, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. It was our spot, the place where we'd shared countless secrets, dreams, and laughs. But this time, it was different. This time, I was holding a small velvet box in my hand, and my heart was pounding like a drum in my chest. You see, Lucas had been my best friend since we were 5. We'd grown up together, shared every milestone, every scar, every triumph. He was the one constant in my life, the person I could always count on. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. I started to see him differently. I started to feel things I never thought I would. I started to fall for him. I had planned this moment for weeks. I was going to tell him how I felt, lay it all out on the line. I was going to tell him that I wanted more than just friendship. I wanted him, all of him. But as I stood there, the wind whipping around us, I couldn't find the words. I couldn't even look him in the eye because I was terrified. Terrified of losing him, of ruining the best thing in my life. But then, just as I was about to chicken out, to shove the box back in my pocket and pretend like this never happened, he turned to me. He looked at me with those deep, soulful eyes and he said, "You're shaking, Alex. What's going on?" And that's when it happened. That's when the world as I knew it tilted on its axis, because I did the only thing I could think of. I kissed him. I kissed him with every ounce of pent-up emotion, every unspoken word, every hidden desire. And for a moment, the world stood still. But then he pulled away. He looked at me, his eyes wide with shock and confusion, and he said the words that would change everything. "Alex, I'm in love with someone else." It was like a punch to the gut. I felt the air rush out of my lungs, my heart shatter into a million pieces. I had been so sure, so certain that he felt the same way, that our connection, our bond, was something more, something special, something worth fighting for. But I was wrong, and as I stood there, the sun dipping below the horizon, the sky fading to black, I realized that our journey was about to take a turn I never saw coming. A turn that would test our friendship, our love, and ultimately, our fate. In the aftermath of that earth-shattering revelation, I felt like I was free-falling, spiraling into an abyss of confusion and heartache. Lucas was in love with someone else. The words echoed in my mind, a cruel mantra that I couldn't escape. I had poured my heart out, taken the biggest risk of my life, and it had blown up in my face. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear into the night and never look back. But Lucas was still standing there, his eyes filled with a mix of concern and regret, and I knew I couldn't just leave. "Alex, say something," he pleaded, his voice soft and uncertain. I could see the worry etched on his face, the tension in his shoulders. He was afraid of losing me, of losing us. And despite the pain I was feeling, I couldn't bring myself to walk away, because he was Lucas, my best friend, the person who had been by my side through every up and down, every twist and turn. And even though my heart was breaking, I couldn't just abandon him. So I took a deep breath, pushed down the lump in my throat, and asked the question that was tearing me apart. "Who is it?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Lucas looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. And then he said the last thing I ever expected to hear. "It's you, Alex," he said, his voice steady and sure. "It's always been you, but I was too afraid to admit it, too afraid to risk losing you, too afraid to face the truth." I felt like the world had stopped spinning, like everything around me had faded away, and it was just the two of us, standing on the edge of the cliff, the moon casting a silver glow over our faces. But you said you were in love with someone else, I stammered, my mind racing, trying to make sense of it all. Lucas took a step closer, his eyes never leaving mine. I know, he said, his voice filled with regret. I panicked. I saw the look in your eyes, the fear, the vulnerability, and I panicked. I said the first thing that came to my mind, the stupidest thing, because I was scared, Alex. I was scared of how much I love you, of how much I need you, of how much I want you. It was like a dam had broken, and all the emotions, all the words, all the feelings came pouring out. Lucas told me how he had been struggling with his feelings for months, how he had been terrified of admitting the truth, even to himself. He told me about the internal battle he had been fighting, the fear of what people would think, of how it would change our friendship, our lives. And as I listened, I realized that I wasn't the only one who had been falling, that Lucas had been on this journey with me all along. But even as the pieces started to fall into place, even as the shock and the pain began to fade, I knew that our journey was far from over. Because love is never simple, never easy. And as we stood there, under the starlit sky, I knew that we were about to face the toughest test of our love yet. A test that would challenge us, change us, and ultimately bring us closer than ever before. As we navigated the complexities of our new reality, Lucas and I found ourselves in uncharted territory. We had confessed our feelings, laid our hearts bare, and now we were left to figure out what that meant for us, for our friendship, for our future. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once, like standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to take the leap but unsure of what lay below. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions. We spent every waking moment together, exploring this new dynamic, this new us. Every touch, every glance, every whispered word felt electric, charged with a meaning that was both familiar and entirely new. It was like we were discovering each other for the first time, peeling back layers we never knew existed, and finding beauty in every revelation. But with the highs came the lows. The uncertainty, the fear, the constant question of what now loomed over us like a dark cloud. We were best friends turned lovers, and the transition was anything but smooth. There were moments of awkwardness, of hesitation, of wondering if we were doing the right thing. There were nights spent lying awake, staring at the ceiling, questioning everything we thought we knew. One evening, as we sat on the couch, the TV playing softly in the background, Lucas turned to me. His eyes were filled with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "Alex," he said, his voice steady but soft, "I think we need to tell people, our families, our friends, I think we need to be honest about who we are, about what we mean to each other." I felt a knot form in my stomach, a mix of fear and anticipation. The thought of coming out, of facing the world with our truth, was daunting, but I also knew that Lucas was right. We couldn't keep living in this bubble, hiding from the world, hiding from ourselves. We needed to take that step, to embrace our love fully and completely. So we started to plan. We talked about who we would tell first, how we would do it, what we would say. We practiced the words, the explanations, the reassurances. We braced ourselves for the reactions, the judgments, the potential fallout. And as we did, I realized that this was it. This was the moment that would define us, that would shape our future, that would test the strength of our love. But just as we were starting to feel ready, just as we were starting to find our footing, life threw us another curveball. A curveball that would change everything, that would force us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities, and ultimately bring us closer than ever before. It started with a phone call late one night. Lucas's mom was on the other end, her voice trembling as she delivered the news that would send our world spinning. His dad had been in an accident. He was in the hospital, and things didn't look good. We rushed to the hospital, our hearts heavy with worry and fear, our plans for coming out suddenly pushed to the back burner. As we sat in the sterile waiting room, the weight of the world pressing down on us, I couldn't help but think about how fragile life is, how one moment can change everything, how one phone call can turn your world upside down. And as Lucas held my hand, his grip tight and desperate, I knew that no matter what happened, we would face it together. Because that's what love is. That's what our love is. Real, true, unbreakable. And even in the face of uncertainty, of fear, of heartache, we would stand by each other, side by side, hearts intertwined. Because that's what love is all about. That's what our journey is all about. And we can't wait to share the next chapter with you. The hospital waiting room became our second home, a place filled with the constant hum of machines, the sterile smell of antiseptic, and the ever-present ticking of the clock. Each second felt like an eternity as we waited for news about Lucas's dad. The uncertainty gnawed at us, but we found solace in each other's presence, our hands clasped tightly, a silent promise that we were in this together. Lucas's mom, usually a pillar of strength, looked worn and fragile. She sat across from us, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and exhaustion. When she looked at us, I saw a flicker of something else, a question, a realization, maybe even a silent acceptance. It was a moment that felt both heavy and hopeful, a turning point in our journey. One afternoon, as we sat huddled together, the doctor finally emerged from the double doors. His expression was serious, but not without a glimmer of hope. "He's stable," he said, and I felt Lucas's grip on my hand tighten with relief. "But we need to monitor him closely. The next few days will be critical." As Lucas's dad began his slow recovery, we found ourselves navigating a new normal. We split our time between the hospital and our apartment, stealing moments of peace and comfort wherever we could find them. In those quiet, stolen moments, Lucas and I talked about everything and nothing, our fears, our hopes, our dreams for the future. It was a strange juxtaposition, the weight of reality pressing down on us while we clung to the hope of what could be. One evening, as we sat by Lucas's dad's bedside, the beeps and hums of the machines filling the silence, Lucas turned to me. His eyes were filled with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "Alex," he said, his voice steady but soft, "I think we should still tell them. Our families, our friends, I think we need to be honest about who we are, about what we mean to each other. Especially now." I felt a lump form in my throat, a mix of fear and anticipation. The thought of coming out, of facing the world with our truth, was still daunting. But I also knew that Lucas was right. We couldn't keep living in this bubble, hiding from the world, hiding from ourselves. We needed to take that step, to embrace our love fully and completely. So we started to plan again. We talked about who we would tell first, how we would do it, what we would say. We practiced the words, the explanations, the reassurances. We braced ourselves for the reactions, the judgments, the potential fallout. And as we did, I realized that this was it. This was the moment that would define us, that would shape our future, that would test the strength of our love. But just as we were starting to feel ready, just as we were starting to find our footing, another bombshell dropped. Lucas's mom, still reeling from the shock of her husband's accident, made a decision that would change everything. She told Lucas that he had to choose his family or me. It was a choice that no one should ever have to make, a choice that tore at the very fabric of our love. And as Lucas looked at me, his eyes filled with tears, I knew that our journey was far from over, that we were about to face the toughest test of our love yet. But I also knew deep down that no matter what happened, our love was strong enough to weather any storm, that it was real and true and unbreakable, and that no matter what, we would find a way to be together. Because that's what love is, a journey full of ups and downs, twists and turns. And sometimes, the most beautiful love stories are the ones that are the most unexpected, the ones that challenge us, change us, and ultimately make us who we are. So stay tuned, because our journey is far from over, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. As we grappled with the ultimatum from Lucas's mom, the world around us felt like it was crumbling. The hospital, once a place of hope and healing, now felt like a battleground, a stark reminder of the choices we were being forced to make. Lucas was torn, his heart pulled in two different directions. On one hand, there was his family, the people who had raised him, loved him, and supported him his whole life. On the other hand, there was me, the person he loved, the person he wanted to build a future with. It was an impossible choice, and I could see the toll it was taking on him. One evening, as we sat in our apartment, the silence between us heavy and uncomfortable, Lucas turned to me. His eyes were filled with a mix of determination and sadness. "Alex," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I can't choose. I can't choose between my family and you. It's not fair and it's not right." I reached out, taking his hand in mine, my heart aching for him. "You don't have to choose," I said, my voice steady and sure. "We'll find a way to make this work, together." And so, we started to fight back. We reached out to Lucas's family, trying to bridge the gap that had formed between us. We had long, difficult conversations, pouring our hearts out and hoping that they would understand. That they would see that our love was real and true and worth fighting for. It was a slow, painful process filled with tears and heartache, but we didn't give up, because we knew that our love was worth it, that it was worth every tear, every sleepless night, every difficult conversation. As the days turned into weeks, we started to see a shift. Lucas's mom, who had once been so cold and unyielding, started to soften. She saw the way we stood by each other, the way we supported each other through every challenge, and slowly she started to come around. She started to see that our love wasn't something to be feared or judged, that it was something to be celebrated. But just as we were starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, another curveball came our way. Lucas's dad, who had been making a slow but steady recovery, took a turn for the worse. He was rushed back to the hospital, his future once again uncertain. And as we sat in that familiar waiting room, the weight of the world pressing down on us, I knew that we were about to face another test of our love, another challenge that would push us to our limits. But I also knew that we were strong enough to face it, that our love was strong enough to weather any storm, because we had fought for it. We had fought for each other, for our love, for our future, and we weren't about to give up now, not when we had come so far, not when we had so much to look forward to. And so we stood by each other, hand in hand, our love a beacon of light in the darkness. We faced the uncertainty, the fear, the heartache together, because that's what love is, a journey full of ups and downs, twists and turns. And sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that are the most unexpected, the ones that challenge us, change us, and ultimately make us who we are. As we look to the future, hand in hand, hearts intertwined, I know that we'll face whatever comes our way together, because that's what love is. That's what our love is, real, true, unbreakable. And that, my friends, is our story. A story of love, of struggle, of triumph. A story that is far from over. Because love is a journey and ours is just beginning. So if you've been touched by our story, if you've found inspiration or hope or comfort in our words, then we invite you to join us on this journey. Subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, and share your favorite parts with us. Let's build a community of love, of acceptance, of understanding, because together we can make a difference. Together we can change the world. One heart, one love story, one journey at a time. So until next time, stay true to yourself, stay strong in your love, and always, always keep fighting for what you believe in. Because that's what love is all about. That's what our journey is all about. And we can't wait to share the next chapter with you.